Joining us now is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, the one and only John Shannon. Good day. How are you?
Happy Wednesday, boys.
Mm-hmm. What are you hearing on the trading market here, the deadline market, John? What's fascinating? Tell me something that came by John Shannon's radar here after All-Star Weekend since we last talked on Friday. Then we'll get into the game, which I'm sure you saw with Elias Lindholm staking his claim here.
But before I talk about trades, can you just imagine being and sitting beside Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin as he doesn't score one but scores two, right? And they turn and look at each other and go, "I love it when a plan comes together." Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine satisfaction. Mm-hmm. They must just be pinching themselves.
Really.
At the same time, they probably had a moment of panic because Kuzmenko scored first, of course, right? So there's a moment where they're like, I don't want to deal with the PR hit of this if Kuzmenko goes off for the and then their guy goes off and gets two. So
yeah, except Calgary's on the outside looking in,
Yeah.
And Vancouver. I really think Flame fans are saying, well, hold on now. Zadorov's in Vancouver. And now Lindholm's in Vancouver, and is there a potential of a third Flame guy being in Vancouver? Why aren't we first in the Pacific? Why is Vancouver first in the Pacific? Why aren't we? And the answer to that, by the way, is that they're playing the right roles in Vancouver. Zadorov is a 5'6". He plays that role perfectly in Vancouver. Lindholm is a great second option after you look at what Pettersson and Miller and Besser do in Vancouver. So playing in the right position makes a huge difference for both of those players playing for the Canucks.
We'll get back to the game in a second, but the reason I asked you the deadline question and mentioned this on yesterday's show, it wasn't long ago, John, I think maybe our last hit before Christmas, where we were sort of bemoaning the fact that, okay, Columbus, Ottawa, and then Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago, there may not be a lot of sellers come the deadline. Well, fast forward here to early February, and a month away tomorrow from the deadline. Pittsburgh and Washington haven't made up much ground. Kuznetsov's now left the Capitals. Philly has lost their goaltender, and they're starting to take on water. Calgary has made a get-out trade. Doug Armstrong in St. Louis seemingly is always talking more about a larger plan in the future. You got Arizona that has fallen off the map here. Minnesota hasn't made up ground, and even Nashville with Barry Trotz, where you wonder, is he satisfied just to get in as the last wild card? Like, I'm sitting here wondering, could we have a buyer's market by March 8th?
We might, which is why it was fascinating to see both Vancouver and Winnipeg go shopping as quickly as they did. And I think two teams that you talked about probably deserve some more consideration. Philadelphia being one, because I think Danny Briere is one of those guys that knows that his team is built for the future or building towards the future. And Washington, I just don't know what Washington is anymore. Beyond trying to have Alex Ovechkin break Wayne Gretzky's record, there's not much there. And so you have to wonder if they have a healthy goalie that they can move. I have heard the name Charlie Lindgren a little bit around the NHL. Is he somebody that could provide a team with a quality backup goaltender? It's worth considering. So Washington, to me, I do not see Pittsburgh making any wholesale changes other than to try to find a little bit of help for the core. And then the big question there, of course, is Jake Gensel. Is what do you do with Gensel if you can't get him signed, and can you afford to sign him? That what's going on in Pittsburgh is an absolute fascination, because Kyle Dubas made the commitment to Sid Crosby to give this group one last kick at the can, and it hasn't paid off just yet. Might be early, but it hasn't paid off yet. And if you're going to try to build the future, are you telling me Jake Gensel isn't part of that future? He's a very good goal scorer and a quality person and a quality player. and I can't imagine seeing him leave town at this point. But you know what? They've got lots of money committed to older players, the oldest team in the league. That to me is an interesting one.
Penguins and Devils are very much in it, though, aren't they? I mean, they've got games in hand on everybody above them. It'd be tempting, especially with the Devils being so injured and still hanging around. Now that they're getting a little healthier, you'd believe in yourself. And the Penguins, hey, you've got those guys. You'd have to believe in yourself too. And that goal differential is still showing me that that's a good team.
I mentioned the Penguins just because Dubas at one point cited the All-Star game as a signpost that he was going to look at. And so you're 5
Which
out.
he did every year he was in Toronto too, by the way. So, I mean, nothing changed for Kyle that way. The other thing about the Devils, guys, is know that Tommy Fitzgerald, who got a new contract not that long ago, has been basically given license to improve the club. And that to me is a huge, huge factor in what the Devils do. And both of them coming off pretty impressive victories on Tuesday night, Pittsburgh against the Jets and New Jersey without Jack Hughes against the Colorado Avalanche.
I'm going to bring up the late night game first to address the spectrum of the Canucks, because that late night game was something else, the Oilers and the Golden Knights. Now, the Canucks played a fabulous game too, a very playoffy game as well, but the other one was even more playoffy, I thought. And it gave
is playoffy a word? Is playoff, or it is now?
It is now.
Okay.
I mean, I think Canucks fans have to be a little bit just realistic about what's coming up in the playoffs when you watch that late night game. Great that the Canucks dealt with a very hot Carolina Hurricanes team last night and held on with a gritty performance in the final couple of minutes. But man, I mean, if that's our first big schedule night coming out of the All-Star game, John, it looks like teams have decided, okay, it's time to play some real hockey here.
Everybody around the league has basically said the same thing in some form or manner, Blake, and that is, it's going to be a grind between now and mid-April. Mm-hmm. It is going to be as close as we're going to get to playoff hockey, particularly in those divisional rivalries. I had a snicker after the game where people in Vegas were saying, well, we're so depleted. Well, did they have Eichel? No. Did they have Theodore? No. But when you can have a defense with Martinez, Pietrangelo, McNabb, and Whitecloud, you're going to be okay. And then Aiden Hill on top of that. That was as close to what we saw during the whole playoffs last year for the Golden Knights than we've seen all season. They will not give up. They are going to be relentless. We're going to see Edmonton and Vegas in the first round. That might be the best news for the Canucks.
Yeah. Let them beat each other up, right?
That might be the best news for hockey fans. That was an extraordinary game.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was, if you're an Oilers fan, it was frustrating at times because, did the big guns have opportunities? They had enough opportunities to win. Aiden Hill was great. I thought Stu Skeeter was really good too. I mean, it was a classic hockey game, and particularly to have one in Super Bowl week in Vegas when there are lots of outsiders going to the game. That was kind of cool.
And in terms of the Canucks in Carolina, it was a heck of a game too. I mean, we're sitting there talking about a heck of a game. Shots were 24-19. Carolina, a 3-2 game. Special teams the order of the day with regards to the goals. And yet, Blake and I both talked about how that was, different times last night. I mean, space was tight. There was some sloppiness because Carolina presses you so hard. And yet still an edge of the seat game where the Canucks blocked 4 shots in the final 90 seconds to secure the victory.
I think that line you used, space was tight, was true probably in 5 of the 8 games last night. There was tight checking. It was close. Winnipeg, Pittsburgh was similar. You get rid of the 5-minute major and the 2 power play goals. That's a 1-0 game. And Winnipeg did have enough opportunities to get the puck past Tristan Jarry. There are teams that have hunkered down now and are trying to focus on getting to the playoffs and preparing for the playoffs. And that's what we're going to see for the next 8 weeks.
It looked like Lindholm was pretty energized to be a Canuck. Like he was moving his feet and getting to those pucks and playing a tough game. I think both players in that trade last night felt like they were on new leases on life.
I think that's fair. I haven't watched Kuzmenko as closely as you have, but he's always got a smile on his face anyway. He's always a happy-go-lucky guy. So to be able to score a power play goal early on, I think will probably be a good thing for him with a Calgary team that really needs some offense. At the same time, I also think there was something kind of cool for Lindholm to play his first game for the Canucks in Raleigh, where he made his first impact. And, he may not be comfortable with his own teammates yet, but he would be comfortable in the environments of that arena. And that, to me, I think augured well for the Canucks. He looked so good. And by the way, name the forward for the Canucks that played the most minutes last night.
Didn't actually
I didn't look that up.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Number 23.
Yeah.
He played more than Pettersson. He played more than Pettersson. He played more than Besser. He played more than Miller. He was the number one forward amongst all Canucks last night, which to me is a really good indication of his versatility for this hockey club.
Yep, played 21 minutes and 1 second to lead all Canucks.
Talk and trust him
forwards, and he was 5 of 10 in the face-off circle. You mentioned playoff.
Yeah, that's
hockey.
the other thing. Face-offs. If you can improve your face-off percentage at this time of year, you're going to do the right thing, and he's going to help with that too.
No, it's funny you mentioned playoff hockey having arrived, because one of the things. It's a good thing it's going to be competitive at the very least at the top of the Western Conference, if not the Pacific Division. Like, the Canucks are not free and clear in the Pacific Division, because if you're talking, your team is on quite a peak right now. You got 32 more to go. You're always worried, of course, about injury, but I think you also want to make sure you're peaking at the right time and don't feel like you're going through an exercise here at some point over the next 32 games. I think we saw that just as recently as last year with Boston, who was so free and clear that the switch sort of, and the foot wasn't fully on the gas, and the next thing you know, here comes a plucky Florida Panthers team in the first round of the playoffs. To me, that's sort of one of the big things that Tocchet has to guard against over these next couple of months.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But I think if you sat with Rick and Adam and Sergey and Mike Yeo and said what needs to happen, they're still dealing with process. They're still dealing with making sure they play the right way every night. There is enough room for improvement all the time to allow this team to be pressured by the coaching staff, to be told, we're not there yet. And I think that's part of their success. What he has done, what the staff have done, is such an amazing job of pressing the right button at the right time. I guarantee you they loved that game last night, the coaching staff. They loved it. They loved every aspect of it. Contributions from the new guy, the defensive aspect, Zadorov's physical play. There was so many things that I would describe as quote unquote playoff hockey that, now let's work on that. Let's hone that and see what happens the rest of the way. And by the way, Thursday in Boston, that'll be another good test, because the Bruins were brutal last night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's ask you our poll question then. For the Canucks, who would scare you most? Edmonton, Vegas, or nobody?
Both. Well, no, I listen, this is how tight the Pacific has become. When the season started, we, the world, including probably the three of us, had Edmonton and Vegas fighting for one. And they had, and I remember saying early, can the Canucks vie for a playoff spot? Certainly they can. But I did not expect them to be this. No one did. So when you look at what the Oilers have done with their turnaround, now winning 16 of their last 17, how's that? And then you look at what Vegas has done. And by the way, Vegas, I think, is 6-1-1 in their last 8. And we all think that they're banged up. These two teams can play playoff hockey. The Canucks can play playoff hockey. All I know is the first 2 rounds in the Pacific Division are going to be raucous. and we're going to lament the fact that we're going to lose two good teams in the first two rounds of the playoffs coming out of this division.
Moving right along here, the Arizona Coyotes. Would they have the temerity to announce a relocation on Super Bowl Sunday, like to try and bury it as much as you can bury sports news? And what are you hearing? Because our friend Frank Saravelli's done some reporting here. It sounds like the Suns ownership group is not interested. So it doesn't sound like there's a local option there to buy and put the team in the basketball arena, which means new rink, which has all sorts of troubles, or we're moving on.
And Gary finally sounds exasperated by it, which is a huge bit of progress.
I think there's a lot of people at the board level that are exasperated. Let's remember, the other 31 owners have assisted this group to keep the team in Arizona. At a certain point, things change. At a certain point, rich people stay rich by saying we're not loaning money anymore. As an aside, this is what happened in Carolina too. Was at a certain point, Peter Karmanos was told, listen, pay us back or sell the team. Nobody will admit that, but that's exactly what happened. Do I think we're close to that? I don't know if we're close to that yet. Do I think there's a deadline? Yeah, I do. I think there is a deadline. I don't think it's this. I don't think it's this Sunday.
Yeah. Well, but they've blown through so many deadlines previously, John. Yeah. I mean, deadlines are almost, false.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Two things occurred in the last 2 weeks to tell me that the end is near somehow, some way. When Marty Walsh, representing the players, says what he says about we can't play in a 5,000-seat arena, and Ryan Smith in Salt Lake City says we're ready and doors are open, we can do this, because they have infrastructure with the NBA team and the MLS team there to help the corporate side and ticketing and all the other stuff, and they have an arena that can probably do 14-5 for hockey right now at the Delta Center. They don't do that without the commissioner's approval. That doesn't happen rogue. Ryan Smith did not go rogue. Marty Walsh did not go rogue. This, to me, is part of a strategy just to get it out there, to get discussions going, and to create awareness of what might happen before May 1st.
We'll see. God willing.
Lastly, in our ongoing discussion about media and how fans will consume the games going forward, ESPN, Fox, Warner Brothers combining their sports rights to launch a new streaming service, according to the Wall Street Journal. I have to give him credit because this is something he's been talking about for a while with us, Shannon, and that is it's probably too big an ask for all of them to ask every consumer. You've got to have some sort of centralization there, more of a one-stop shop, so that we're not being asked to sign up
$20 a month for 50
exactly for death
Yeah.
by 1,000 cuts streaming service subscriptions. What do you make of that, and how do you think that's going to change the way we're going to watch the games going?
I don't think it will change the direction of where we're going. This is trying to create a more level playing field with Apple and Amazon. And both of those are making forays into sports. And because they have such a huge footprint, not just in North America, but around the world, they can create these types of conduits to the fan much easier. When you look at the size of what Apple TV is and the size of what Amazon Prime is, they make the other ones look small.
It dwarfs ESPN, which has been the worldwide leader, as we know, for years. But
and that's it. I mean, John makes
right.
a great point.
By the way, Blake, self-proclaimed.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
To me, this to amalgamate these three or four, who knows by the end of it, whatever it means, just is a logical conclusion to trying to compete against the guys who know how to stream better than anybody else.
Right. And customer acquisition going at it individually was going to be more difficult. And it's not just Apple, it's YouTube and their Sunday ticket deal. It's Amazon with Bally. So you're absolutely right, John. You're in the ring with some heavyweights, the likes of which you have not been in the ring with before.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and you got to be sitting in a boardroom in Bristol, Connecticut, or in New York City, and be scared if those guys, and if Tim Cook at Apple decides he's going to spend a pittance of his money on rights fees, they can beat you up badly.
Yeah, and Bezos with Amazon too. I mean, it's not actually dissimilar from the Saudis going at the PGA Tour. We can lose money for a long time here, guys.
Yeah,
so you tell us how long you want to fight.
Here's what we need, though. Here's what we need, though. We need these guys to invest in podcasts.
We sure do. I love it.
Can you say that louder, please?
If you got a lead on that, Shannon, maybe we can bundle here with you. If you can land Bezos or you can land Cook, if you can get the meeting, Blake and I will make time. Title sponsorship is available here.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Great stuff, John. Thanks for this. We'll catch up next week.
Have a great week, guys.
Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.